and more exciting, happy 300th Covideo. This is the 300th video that we have launched since March 15 when the COVID quarantine started. We are super grateful. Thank you to all of you beautiful people who have watched, have shared, have become a part of the Warrior Saints movement. We decided to film today from my home. I welcome you to my home. It's the... To say thank you is just not enough. We're grateful to all of you. We're grinding and fighting as hard as we can for all of you. So we're grateful that you're with us. Love it. Today is a beautiful day. As I said, it is Columbus Day 2020. And as we celebrate the great man who discovered this land, or at least is credited with discovering America, 2020 has been a rough year, man. We all know that, right? It's been insane. Let's just say it. Let's call it what it is. It has been insane. The pandemic is obviously the biggest culprit of the chaos of our times. But there's things that have gone with it. There have been, the rise of something called the woke culture, the cancel culture. There are depression, anxiety, suicide, all on the rise. Doctors prescribing medications on the rise, obesity on the rise. We saw all of that racial tension that happened earlier this year that produced protests and riots and police shooting people and police being shot by people. It's been tough for many of us as parents who have had to school our children at home. And the risks and the fear of do we send them back? They're back, but are they wearing masks because they're safe or what? It's all that chaos that goes with it. There has been an overwhelming sense of anger and hate and divisiveness and polarization, mostly stemming from the political movements that is 2020 and all of the elections that are happening. And with that, if you saw the debates, all the debates, you recognize that, humanity, gentility, manners it's they're gone. What the heck is happening? And it's just really become 2020 has been a rough year in that sense. What's worse, and this is what I struggle with the most, and why we, Greg and myself and the rest of our Warrior Saints team, work so hard, is the worst problem of 2020 is that there is very little thought anymore. Right? Most people just regurgitate what someone else tells them to say. It is you're part of a movement, therefore you have to say what your team says. And if it's posted on social media, you grab it and you share it and regurgitate it and pass it out there. And there's not a lot of legit thought. People are not thinking, we're become automata, right? That's the scary part. And so really, we just become agents of the Nine, right? And as you've heard me say before, the Nine, they're like this, secret society who try to control and run the world. And in some real sense, they're doing a pretty good job of it. And they use all of us as the automata, as I was mentioning, but as instruments to continue to proliferate their thought, their idea, and their control. And I was thinking about it. We've been talking about this as we get ready for today's episode, our 300th, and we thought, how did we get here? What in the heck happened that this great land of ours, which America is the greatest country on the planet, even in spite of all of the turmoil that we faced this year, we're still the most amazing place to be. How did we get here? This is a place that was founded on Christian principles, Judeo-Christian ideals, and all of the things that we're seeing happen today in our times. These are things that we're trying to avoid, and yet how did we get here? And I think the answer to that question is, it's been as our nation has become more secular, we have engaged in a systematic removal of God from our lives. A systematic removal of God from all things that is America. And when that happens, you can see the poison of faithlessness produces results like 2020 has been, right? It's when God is not the focus, when God is not what we look at, when living a Christ-like life, what we call the life of the cross, a crucifixional life, is not what we look at. This is what happens. This is the chaos that is. It is the ensuing result of submitting to the poison of faithlessness. We become our own reference. We become our own source of authority, and we end up just like Adam and Eve. After we suffer from the poison of faithlessness, suffering from the poison of selfishness, the result is what we see in the world, in the culture, in the society all around us. And look, it's not just for the society. It happens to individuals too. You know, when God is no longer the reference in our lives, and living crucifixionally is no longer the MO about how we live our lives, that type of chaos happens to individual people as well. And that's why I think we all feel the suffering that's going on out there. We can see others suffering, but we've probably also felt it ourselves. I mean, remember, we talked about, like, you know, anxiety on the rise and depression on the rise. I mean, how many of us out there watching today are struggling with these things? Even divorce, get this. You probably know this, but the divorce numbers for our country are at 50%. That means 1 in 2 don't make it. Man, that's tough. And that creates all kinds of damage on a person's heart and mind and soul. And God help us if there are children that go with it. I mean, you know, with that marriage, that they suffer as well, aside from the husband and wife who split. You can see that it's the chaos of a non-crucifixional life is so devastating. And so we thought, well, what does God have to say about all that? I mean, is there some guidance, teaching, understanding that the Lord gives to us to help us in these crazy times? And I'm going to get to that. Before I do, I want you to stay with us, because we have a lot of great stuff at the end of our episode today, most especially a surprise announcement. I didn't get that in earlier. I want to make sure I got that in. But did I miss it? Okay, yeah, no, I forgot to get it in, and Greg's like, go. Does God have something to say about it? You bet he does. I want to read to you a little bit from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 14. And this is a beautiful text that we have heard before. We've talked about it on this series before. And in all of our lessons, we've talked about this before because it's so powerful. The story from Matthew 14, the immediately preceding context, is that Jesus has just fed 5,000 with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread, right? So you know the story where he fed 5,000. He then puts his disciples in the boat and sends them across the sea while he stays to pray and have some quiet time. And in the middle of the night, he begins walking on the water to them. And listen to the text and what happens here. Then he made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. And after he dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. But the boat by this time was many furlongs distant from the land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. The wind was against them. So the boat, you can imagine, right? Like the chaos of a boat that is storm-tossed. In the chaos around it, the wind is the main culprit. And in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus comes walking to them on the water, right? Like it's a powerful text because, you know, in all of Scripture, water is necessary, but it's also the bad guy, right? Like God has to control the waters. In the very first page, actually the very first few verses, that the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters in Genesis, right? When God was creating. And it says that on the third day, he created light on the first day. The second day, he separated the firmament, the heavens, the skies from the earth. And then on the third day, he gathered the waters and controlled them by putting land around them, right? So like, in other words, he controlled the water. The same thing happens with the parting of the Red Sea and the parting of the Jordan River when the Israelites go through with Joshua and Psalm 93. Like controlling the water it's an important, powerful thing, right? It has to, you can't destroy it because we need it for crops, bathing, and drinking. But it can get out of control if it's not under God's aegis. And in this story, Jesus comes walking on the water, like, which is an absolute absurdity, right? Like human beings are mass. We're made of stuff, and our stuff sinks in water, right? And yet Jesus is walking on the water. Now you might say, all right, he is the divine Son of God, and I would agree with you. Yes, of course he can walk on water because, well, he is indeed the divine Son of God. But then something happens. The disciples kind of freak out, and Peter says, Lord, if it is you, allow me to come to you on the water. So now a fully human being is going to test the waters, if you will. And Christ says, come. Now think about it for a minute. Peter, the name Peter in Greek is Petros, and it means rock, right? So now forget human beings. The rock, what happens when a rock is in the water? It doesn't float, guys, right? You know that. We all know that. It sinks. And so by design, like why did Jesus not call John or James or any one of the other disciples? Why Peter? Because it's telling you that he is by design to sink. But then something happens. Something powerful happens. Peter, not the divine Son of God, right? Who has no business walking on the water. In fact, as the rock has business to sink, is looking at Christ, and he too is walking on the water. And so you can see the message in the story is that, listen, verse 29, he said, come. Jesus told Peter to come. So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. Pros ton iisun. Toward Jesus, right? So he's looking, pros is that direction, looking at him. And he's seeing Christ. He's seeing what we would call the crucifixional life. And he's doing things that are not possible. He's doing the impossible. He's walking on water, right? The rock who's supposed to sink is not sinking, has mastered the monsters of the seas, right? Powerful. And that's a message for us. It says, look, when focused on Christ, the things that shouldn't happen, happen. That's kind of resonates for us today in the chaos of the world that we're living in. Looking away from Christ, it led us to the chaos that we're in. But looking at Christ, the impossible is happening. And that's pretty interesting because if you think about the very next verse in the story, what does Peter do? Listen to it very carefully. Verse 29 to repeat. So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus, pros ton iisun, towards him. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink. He looked at the chaos around him, right? How can you see the wind? I mean, the wind, you can't see the wind. That's the, you just, obviously you can't see the wind. So what's the statement that's being made here by Matthew in the gospel? It's the chaos that is causing the boat to rock and the waves to rush up against the boat to cause this chaos. All of that chaos, it's there. It's part of the world. And when Peter, the rock who's supposed to sink, looked at Jesus, he was doing the impossible. But he took his eyes off the prize. And what happened? Overwhelmed him. And that's the message for you and I today, right? Do you see that? That's our message today. The chaos that is 2020, that is the world. And 2020, look, guys, we talk about it because we're in it. It's no different than history gone by. All of the things that are happening have happened before and they will happen again. It's just nothing new under the sun, as we hear in Ecclesiastes. So I don't want to make more out of 2020 than it should be. But it is the chaos that we're enduring. And the challenge for us is to say, look, it's time to become a warrior saint. I've already tried the way of the world, and it led to all of the stuff that we highlighted at the beginning of this episode. But what if I, maybe just like Peter, even though I may be a dense rock who will sink to the bottom, maybe if I kept my eye on the real prize and focused on Christ himself, maybe I might too conquer the monsters that is the chaos of my world. You see that? I mean, Christ has shown us in Matthew that he can walk on water and that if you focus on him, so can Peter. So why then would it not be for you and I to focus on Christ and to leave the stuff of the world aside? Look, worldly ways has led us to where we are, to the pain and the suffering and the discomfort and the anxiety that we all feel, especially as we draw nearer to this election. Maybe we should look somewhere different. Maybe we should focus somewhere different, be different, do things differently. Maybe we should start to be crucifixional. And that is, my beloved, that's what life is all about. Living the life of the cross is the only thing that works. And I'm sure of it. Not because I'm anything special, but because Christ proved that to us. And so the call for you and I, that to which we have been called, is to be crucifixional starting right now. And I promise you this, look at this. Like, think about how awesome it is if all of us, like as a nation, even half of us as a nation, were to stop looking at the world the world's way and start looking at the world through the lens of a Christ-like crucifixional life. Imagine the power we would have. Imagine the impact we would have. I mean, huge things would happen. Forget walking on water, i.e. Peter. We would change the world in a positive and healthy way. And don't think for 1 second, beloved, that we can't do it. You darn well know we can. And we're here to help you do that. That's why we exist. We've done 300 episodes. Can you imagine, since March 15, when quarantine started, the Warrior Saints team has put out 300 episodes. Teachings every day, worship, sermons, our Warrior Saints exclusive content. 300 episodes today. This one that you're watching is the 300th. It's not to say, look at us. It's to say, hey, we love you and we're here to help you because we're on this journey with you. We're walking with you. Come on, let's go. So, I mean, it's imperative that as we shift our focus away from the world and back towards Christ to find that peace and that release from the chaos that we so desperately seek, I want to offer to you the opportunity for us to help guide you on that journey. That's what we do. And it's really easy. All you need to do is join us and visit warriorsaints.org. Warriorsaints.org is going to take you to our website. And there you will see something called the Way of the Warrior Saint. The Way of the Warrior Saint, it's an online library filled with teachings, just fun, positive, practical, and biblically based teachings on how to live our lives crucifixionally. That's all that it is. It's nothing fancy. It's just gritty and raw. And I'll tell you something, we're pretty raw. I mean, like, we just say it. We're speaking truth. There's no, this exclusive content is for those who want it. And I'm telling you, it's real. It's fun, it's real, and it's changing lives. It's changed my life. I'm a subscriber, actually, believe it or not. I don't, so I want to encourage you, get there, watch it with us, join, subscribe. It's because it is our 300th episode. I want to tell you, we're giving it to you. It's free. It's on us. If you subscribe, use this. There's a promo code you'll see popping on your screen. For those maybe you can't see it, it's COVID300 in celebration and honor of our 300th episode. If you use this promo code when you sign up, the first month is totally free. It's on us. You have access, full access, unfettered access to the entire database for the first month for free. That's it. It's yours. And if you like it, stay with us. And if you don't, you don't. Right? It is. We want everyone in the world to join us. We know that that's probably not going to happen because most people may not have even heard of us. But for those that have, here's your shot. It's on us, man. Giving it to you. Subscribe today. That promo code and subscribe today. And if you would, I don't know, help us out. We'd love for you to share it. However you're viewing this, you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube, on our website, wherever you may be, share it. Get it out there for us. Even throw it on Insta for us. We're not good at Insta. We want to be better, but we some of us are a little old, man. We got to learn some of these things still, right? Like, yeah, he's laughing at me. But help us. We appreciate that. And the last thing that I want to say, which is very exciting. I'm humbled by this. This is our surprise announcement. I'm thankful to a lot of people, but we have published. We have already written our first book. It will be called The Way of the Warrior Saint. It's with the editor now, getting ready for publication. So I don't have a date to tell you when it's coming, but it will be out soon. So look forward to that. Look forward to you guys all hopefully reading that and sharing and enjoying that with us. Love you, beautiful people. It's been a great day. We thank you again so much for helping us get to 300 episodes. Without you, what we do means nothing. And without you, without you, we're nothing. So we thank you. We love you. I was singing Eminem in my head. Sorry. It's just a song. It's stuck, We need you. Anyways, we do love you, and we're grateful to you. We thank you so much. Remember, visit us at warriorsaints.org. Subscribe. It's free. Just do it. Love you guys. Tomorrow, we're back at it with episode 301. See you tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific. Until then, keep walking on the way of the Warrior Saint.